Hello, all, and welcome to another edition of Football with Flags. Matty Ice here with you. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. Today we've got another Road to the Knockouts feature for you. This is going to include Group D, which, for those who don't know, it looks pretty similar to the same group that we had in 2018. That group consisted of France, Denmark, Australia, and Peru. Now, again, Peru and Australia had to play in an intercontinental playoff to see who would get to this point. And Australia pulled off the upset with that penalty shootout victory over them. So they were not able to join this group as well to kind of make that entire thing come full circle. But Tunisia will certainly take their place and be happy to do so, and should play off for a very interesting group. So let's go ahead and get started and get right into it with each of these teams and what to expect. All right. So right off with our defending world champs. For me, I think that this team should definitely win the group. Even though going on through this series, there'll certainly be a number of teams that I'll put that are expected to get 9 points. To be honest, considering how France has played here recently, I really don't expect them to win all 3 games. I think they're going to have a huge target on their back. And this team could very well, not necessarily self-destruct, but I think that they could face some troubles in this group stage. So for me, I feel like the magic number for them is 7 points. I definitely could see them getting through with a win versus Australia and Tunisia. However, I could see them losing to Denmark, taking a draw. And let's not forget, Denmark actually did beat them here recently in the last international break, 2-1 in the Nations League. Not only that, but France actually only came out of that, I believe, with 1 point through 4 games. Now, granted, again, they didn't have totally everybody that I think could potentially be making this World Cup roster, but nevertheless, the defending champs should not be playing that poorly, especially considering they're coming into a competition that they're the defending champs of as well, with the Nations League also. So for me, I feel like something that they're really going to have to strive not to do is getting in their own way. And I definitely feel like whether that's just tension in the locker room, guys looking to get more minutes, maybe the potential struggle of, finishing chances, all sorts of different things could possibly get in the way. But certainly, France has been known over the years to, have troubles internally, and certainly would not want to see that happen with them here this time around, especially considering they are the defending champs and they have so much talent. But that could potentially happen. So we'll have to wait and see. For me, I really do feel like that this team, they have so much talent. We'll see what kind of formation they'd like to play. A number of different options. Could certainly see them in a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. However, I think that with this team being a little bit different than what they were in 2018, we saw sometimes Mbappe was kind of that man in the middle. And I do feel like that adding Benzema back to this roster, if he is healthy and able to make it, that he could really provide some balance, especially considering that, France is probably not going to have as many opportunities to counter on teams as much as they would like until it gets into the later stages of a game if they do have the lead. Now, granted, if it is tied or they're trailing, certainly teams are going to look to sit back and make it a lot more difficult to try and penetrate those lines, those gaps in between the defense. But having Benzema in the middle of the park, I think, is going to be huge for them to find more success with that doing so. So I feel like he's going to play a pivotal role if that is the case for them. Again, I still feel like this French team has so much to do and so much to continue to improve on, considering the depth and the number of great players that they have. For me, in our early predictions, I did have them winning the tournament again, which could very well happen. I still think it certainly could, but it's going to be much, much more difficult than it was in 2018 to do so, despite the fact of some of the great teams that they did play in that competition to get all the way and win the title. But we shall see. So, moving on. Now on to Denmark. Now this team for me is such a dark horse, very interesting. I like their schedule. I think that they could really get off to a great start with Tunisia. Really feel confident after those first 90 minutes with 3 points, and then go into France feeling even better about themselves. And then concluding with Australia. I really do feel like this team has a chance to win the group. Whether it's through 7 points or 9 points, I definitely think that it could easily come through 7 points as well if they get a better goal differential. And again, we've seen France potentially struggle at putting bigger numbers on teams as well. So, with that being said, some teams might be a little bit more on edge when they're playing France in terms of putting numbers behind the ball and looking to defend than they are against Denmark, which could open up more space and allow Denmark to potentially score more goals. So it could come off of goal differential. They could just straight up beat France and collect 9 points. But at the same time, they might not even be able to get out of the group either. I mean, we did see them tie Australia in the group back in 2018, I believe. So, again, this Danish side, I really do feel like they're going to make it out of the group and could potentially make a quarterfinal. Not sure I would say semifinal run quite just yet. Maybe we'll just have to see how the bracket plays out. But, again, we did see this team make a very resilient run last summer after losing Christian Eriksen in the Euros to get all the way to the semis before losing to England. So this team definitely feel like they're going to have to continue to start fast and look to build pressure on the teams that they play. I think sometimes they start a little bit slow, and that can kind of cost them, in the second half and in the latter stages of some certain games. But, again, I think this team could certainly see them in a 4-3-3 as well as we move forward into this tournament. A lot of really key solid pieces, and I think a lot of guys that you saw in 2018 playing the competition could certainly be back as well. So I think that this team is really excited and poised for a good potential run. But, again, I do think that 7 points for them is a good number. And, I mean, they collected 5 last time around in 2018 with this almost identical group. So I certainly could see them building off of that and potentially winning it. But nevertheless, I do feel like the Danish have a great opportunity to at least advance out of this group, whether it's first or second. All right, now moving on to Tunisia, the African side in this group. For me, very difficult group schedule. For those who didn't see them in 2018, they really struggled. They did get a result against Panama, picked up 3 points. I believe I can't remember if that was their first. Can't remember if that was their first ever World Cup. No, I don't think it was their first ever World Cup win. I'm thinking probably just the fact that Panama had made it to their first finals ever. But anyway, Tunisia really did struggle. I mean, they let in, I believe, 11 goals total between their 2 matches between England and Belgium, getting, I think, thrashed like 6-1 and 5-2, something like that. So this team, I think that they're really going to have difficult times in terms of putting together a lot of good chances. They're really going to have to defend well and be very disciplined and patient, in my opinion. I think if they aren't, that could really cost them. And again, that unfortunately means they're probably going to have to sit in some low blocks, really put a lot of numbers behind the ball, and probably defend a good portion of these games without possession of the ball. But again, I think that this side has a really good opportunity to be able to try and make some good runs in terms of, looking to combine and counter when possible. So, we'll see how that goes for this team in terms of that. But I do feel like the climate could potentially be an advantage for this team as well, considering they are from Africa, and how hot it's probably going to be in Qatar could maybe play to their advantage. We'll have to wait and see. But, again, I think that this team's really going to have an uphill climb in terms of what they hope that they will be able to do in terms of trying to get out of the group. For me, I feel like that they're going to have to acquire some points before they get to France. If they go into that game, obviously, with 0 points, they're pretty much almost definitely eliminated. But I definitely think it's going to be hard coming right out of the gate to score points against Denmark. But I do think that they could do it against Australia for sure. Even if they pick up a draw, they're still, of course, in the hunt going into that final game. But then again, you're playing the world champs with some of the greatest attackers on the planet. It's going to be very difficult to pick up, at that point, probably 3 points to try and advance through the group. So I really do feel like those first 2 games they're going to have to get through with at least 4 if they really want a good possibility of trying to make it out. And even with 4, it's probably going to come down to goal differential or some other tiebreaker if they're going to try and make it through. So we'll see what happens with that. But moving on, last but not least, down to Australia, who, again, like we just talked about before, got through beating Peru in the Intercontinental Playoff. Their schedule, pretty tough. It's for them. I think they should be happy that they've got Tunisia in the middle of France and Denmark, and the fact that they're not having to play the 2 of them right off the bat, because if they pick up 2 losses again there as well, just like we talked with Tunisia and some other teams, you go into that final game with 0 points, more often than not, you're mathematically already eliminated, and there's not much chance to recover. So the fact that they've got Tunisia in between, I think, is very important for them. They cannot overlook them. And I certainly hope that Australian fans aren't doing so, especially considering they feel like they're going to have to score some points against France and Denmark, pick up some results. You're going to have to take 3 points from Tunisia. It has to happen. I'm not saying that you can't beat France and Denmark. I'm just saying that the likelihood of that happening is slim to none compared to the opportunity that you have to score 3 points against Tunisia. and really better yourself in terms of trying to get out of this group. For me, I do feel like 5 points is a great magic number for them to potentially get out. If they can pick up a result against Denmark and France with a draw each, which again, they scored a draw against Denmark in 2018. And even though that France and Australia split penalties in 2018 pretty much within 5 minutes of each other, Australia did lose to France 2-1 on an own goal. Which I believe, I can't remember, I think it was Pogba might have scored that goal, technically the game winner anyway, but it was an own goal, is what it was officially counted as. So, they played pretty well against them then, and I feel like that they could put together a great fight against them this time as well and, potentially draw. I'm not sure if I could see them definitely getting a victory against France, but nevertheless, it is a possibility. But again, like I said, I think 5 points for them is a good starting point and something that they could really consider being a gateway to try and get out of this group. For me, I feel like, though, that finishing some quality chances that they have, they're going to have to do so, especially against France and Denmark. They're going to be even slimmer than they probably are against Tunisia, but they cannot look to – I'm not going to necessarily want to say that they play down to the standards of Tunisia, but, they're probably going to have more possession, more attacking opportunity in that game. So they're really going to have to take advantage of that as much as possible. I could definitely see this team in a 4-2-3-1. I'd like to see them probably do that and push some numbers a bit more forward when they're playing Tunisia. However, against France and Denmark, I could certainly see that transitioning into a 4-5-1 or even already just starting off with that. Which again, you could see that transition based off of whether they have possession of the ball or are out of possession. But again, I think a 4-5-1 against France for sure is a way to go. And then maybe Denmark, depending on how things are going, especially the first 20, 25 minutes. But we'll have to wait and see. But for me, again, like I said, in our early predictions, we do have France and Denmark getting out of the group. We'll have to wait and see if Australia or Tunisia can put something else together. Again, definitely going to come back to our predictions once the September international break concludes and we get to see, the kind of that final tryout, final audition for every team before, rosters have to be submitted and everything else. But, very interesting group for sure, especially considering just the fact that these teams most of them are familiar with each other. We'll have to see if the results kind of stay the same or if they switch it up quite a bit. But that is going to conclude it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And until next time, see you guys soon. Peace out.